I'll call this meeting to order, and this is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Transportation Public Works Committee. I'm Councilmember Reich. I'll be chairing the committee, and I'm joined by my colleagues. All members of the committee are here: Councilmember Blong, Council Vice President Glidden, Councilmember Palmisano, Councilmember Bender, and Councilmember Gordon. We can conduct today's business. We have on this agenda today, November 10th, 2015, we have 17 items, 4 of which are discussion items. I will go through the consent items. Any committee member can pull any item for further discussion, starting with item 1, which is the 2015 levy of various public works department special assessments. Item 2 is the 2016 uniform assessment rates, and that's to set those rates for the year 2016. Item 3 is the Northern Tributary 35 North Tunnel Modeling Project. And that's a funding agreement with the Mississippi Watershed Management Organization for their participation in that study. Item 4 is the North Region Watershed Modeling Project. And again, that's with the Mississippi Watershed Management Organization funding agreement to partner with them on additional modeling for our system. Item 5 is the Solid Waste and Recycling Services Commercial Pricing Structure Change. And that's approving the commercial pricing change for solid waste and recycling services. Item 6 is the prioritized bridge replacement list, and that's a resolution to forward that for purposes of eligibility for state funding. Item 7 is the 7th Street North Reconstruction Project variance request, and that's with the Minnesota Department of Transportation for state aid operation rules on 7th Street North from 1st Avenue North to 2nd Avenue North. Item 8 is 38th Street Reconstruction Project between Hiawatha Avenue and Minnehaha Avenue, and it's a series of resolutions to proceed with that project. Item 9 is the 3rd Avenue South Redesign Project, and that's the 1st Street South, 16th Street variance request for that project, and a variance from the Minnesota Department of Transportation state aid rules. Item 10 is the Nicollet Mall Public Art Agreement Amendments, and it's a series of amendments to proceed with that aspect of the project. That'll be referred to the Ways and Means Committee. Item 11 is the bid for liquid carbon dioxide, and that's from Poet Ethanol Products for an expenditure around $200,000. Item 12 is the bid of Columbia Heights Mixing Chambers Hallway Painting Project, and that's accepting the low bid for that service. That'll be referred to Ways and Means. And the final consent item is the bid for automated meter reading equipment, and that's for activities of our Water Treatment and Distribution Division. That'll also be referred to the Ways and Means Committee. Do any committee members wish to pull a consent item? I'm not seeing any. I will move all as stated. All in favor say aye. Dissenting nay. Those carry. We now can move to the discussion item of the agenda. Item 14 is our first one, and that's the West 29th Street Reconstruction Project Layout and Assessments. Good morning, Director Cockey.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Don Flom, who is our transportation planner with the Transportation Planning and Programming Division, will make this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, council members. We're here today to talk about the West 29th Street corridor. We are looking to reconstruct the West 29th Street corridor in 2016. You can see a map on the cover sheet showing the limits of the project from Bryant Avenue South to Lyndale Avenue South, a 2-block segment. As you can see from the slideshow here, we have very poor conditions, street conditions, along the corridor. It's in need of repair. We had a very a very robust community process when we went out to the community to talk about what should we do with this corridor. And today we have with us Lacey Shelby, who represents CPED. She's going to get up here and talk for just a moment about the community process.
Mr. Chair, council members, my name is Lacey Shelby, Principal Urban Designer with Community Planning and Economic Development. Partnering with Public Works, we hosted several community engagement sessions, 3 public meetings, and we participated in public open streets where we had an opportunity to share out and understand sort of community desires for what they hope to see in the West 29th Street reconstruction project. We also had an opportunity to partner with community groups and Max Musicant for his work activating the street. And Don Flum will share a little bit more on this process.
So as Lacey mentioned, 3 community meetings, 1 an open house, and I think it's worth noting how much interest there was in doing something along this corridor that improved the environment for pedestrians. That seemed to be a common theme at all of the community meetings. There were other needs that were mentioned, including the need to keep some parking along the corridor, but there was generally an overwhelming consensus that we needed to do something to improve the pedestrian realm in this corridor. And so a number of options were presented during the community process, and folks wanted us to look at something a little more innovative, something that has been done for years in Europe. There's a term called a Wohnnerf, which is a shared use street. And American terminology, we use shared use street because it's a little more self-explanatory on what it is. But essentially in a lot of plazas throughout Europe and a lot of places, you have a very robust pedestrian environment, particularly during the daytime hours. And then deliveries can be made at night, or areas can be shared with cars, like the photo here shown in London, where very slow traffic can move with essentially a plaza-like condition. And so this had a lot of folks interested. Should we be trying something like this here in Minneapolis? And we looked to Seattle for some help in this. They have recently completed a corridor project in Seattle called the Bell Street project. And it is a shared use street. Vehicles are allowed to use the corridor, but it is with a primary pedestrian bike focus. It is an integrated corridor with green space. There are some very interesting design elements to this. With the sight impaired, there needed to be some contextual edge to the shared use streets so that they knew exactly where they were, and it also delineates where the car should not be. As you can see on both sides, there's a more traditional sidewalk behind the planted area. So as we look at our corridor here, we hired WSB to help us envision what this could look like. There was definitely an overwhelming interest in seeing events, program space along this corridor once reconstructed. The idea of a farmer's market or an art fair or anything that folks want to organize, we've taken that into account with our layout. So here's an artist rendering of what the corridor will look like. We are bringing today forth a layout. As I mentioned before, this is a type of street where all modes can use it. We are having some conversations with MnDOT to get the speed limit reduced to 10 miles per hour. As you all know, we can't do that by ourselves. And looking at event space combined with metered parking on the north side, and then on the south side, event space with essentially no parking zone to allow for furnishings. We're looking at some green space enhancements. And basically, this is kind of the canvas for what could be. This could really take off as a very well-programmed neighborhood space. It's a very exciting project. It's something new. It's something that there's a lot of interest in doing. And with that said, We're going to be observing this corridor and coming back to you at some point with some policy guidance for how to do these elsewhere in the city. So this is our pilot. This is our test. I want to recognize Councilmember Bender and her hard work and her staff's hard work on this. She has definitely been a champion of this project and very enthusiastic about this concept, as we are. We're always willing to try new things, and here's something new. So with that said, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions per the presentation? Seeing none, thank you very much. And we do have an action before us that would approve the layout as stated in the presentation and authorizing staff to negotiate and execute easements and additional right-of-way as necessary. Any further conversation? Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move approval of the layout and just had a couple brief comments I wanted to make.
Please.
So I wanted to thank you, Mr. Chair, for your support of this project. This came into my life as a council member before I took office when former Mayor Ryback gathered a meeting of the property owners of 29th Street and shared a vision for this street to be more than it is today, which is a pothole-ridden kind of back alley with what used to be industrial land and now is home to about 3,000 new residents. And so we ended up taking a little bit of a different approach than we talked about at that first meeting, where the city is taking the lead on reconstructing these first two blocks as a pilot. We were able to bring forward a proposal that fits within the regular reconstruction budget, which was really important to me and everyone, I think, that was working on this. And that took a lot of innovation from staff at Public Works and at CPED. And I really appreciated how our staff was able to work together across departments on this project. I think it's a good model going forward. The public engagement process was also really creative and unique. We were able to help folks envision what's a new kind of design for the city and really kind of tap into the creativity of the community. We were able to work together with the Lake Street Council, which got a grant to program the street temporarily over the summer to raise visibility for the project and to help share the word about what was coming and also get people's feedback about how they wanted this street to look and feel in the future. So it's been really great to be a part of this over the last 18 months or so. Mr. Chair, we all had mentors as we came into office, us new council members, and this was one of the first things I talked about with you. So I wanted to thank you for your leadership and support on this, and really excited that we were able to bring something forward that's both really innovative but practical in that it sticks within the original budget and really takes this phased approach so we can see how this works and tweak it in the future if we need.
Thank you. Councilmember Gordon.
Well, I just wanted to speak in favor of this and also just to express my enthusiasm. One of the couple of things I noted, Councilmember Bender already noted, but I think it is really beneficial when we have the community working with CPED and with Public Works to kind of look at these and take our time and figure out the design. And really appreciated finding examples like from Seattle where this kind of worked. I really like that approach where there's a little bit of a curb line there to deal with the water management, stormwater issues and those things, and also being sensitive to the when for visually impaired when they're coming to the street. I'm hopeful that this might be a model that we can try elsewhere and start looking at how does this fit in with our complete streets policy and what does this kind of more pedestrian-oriented shared space look like and how can we make it more part of our city and other places. So thanks for leading the way here, and I wish this great success.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say I think this will be a really interesting pilot to look at and see about its applicability to other spaces. Myself, in the 13th ward, we have some old trolley right-of-way space, and we're always thinking and dreaming of other things to do with it. And what I really appreciate about this project is that it's taken a very practical turn, but that it is a pilot with the grade shifting and everything. It will be good to see how this works there and see about its applicability elsewhere in future projects. So thank you, Councilmember Bender, and thank you to staff.
Any other comments? Seeing, I'll just make one comment myself. It seems that this is a piece to the puzzle to get to a concept of holistic philosophy where we don't just do ADA, we don't just do water treatment, we don't just do different modes and trying to make them coordinate. we really try to design things universally. And when we've done that, we meet all needs. And so I think this is definitely gets us towards that. We, of course, want to learn from it. There's a lot of very prosaic things we have to accomplish with our water management and traffic flow. But here we're trying to invite other uses as well. So great work by the staff, really driving innovation and beating Portland to the punch once again. So with that, all in favor say aye. Aye. Senti nay. That carries. We now move to item 15, and that is the Impound Lot Improvement Project with the two items before us.
Mr. Chair, John Burgess, our Director of Traffic and Parking Services, will make this presentation.
Good morning, Director.
Good morning, council members. John Worches, Director of Traffic and Parking Services. Today we've got some action before you related to the impound lot, but before I get into those specific recommendations, I have a little background and history about the impound lot itself. First of all, some people may not know where the impound lot is located in our city, so first little starting point there, located west of downtown. To zoom in a little bit, the purple shaded area indicates the impound lot over by Bassett's Creek, near Interstates 394 and 94. Zooming in a little bit more, the impound lot mostly falls in Ward 7 and effectively touches just a little bit of Ward 5. So Councilmember Yang is a champion of the impound lot because it's in his ward. So, with that, to give you maybe a scope about what are the activities and what's really occurring at the impound lot today. So in red here are three labels about where the entrance to the impound lot is. There are three little buildings in this graphic indicating our current building, forensics, police garage area, and then a shed that we use for storage. The rest of the site east of Van White is storage for our daily tows, but also there's a little triangle spot that looks empty on the graphic. That's where we do our auctioning today. West of Van White, we have more lot. Primarily that is additional daily tows, but also our police hold area. And then on the far westerly side of the lot is an empty space again. That's what we're using for overflow for street sweep and snow types of activities. Our neighbors around the area, to the south of us is the Burlington Northern Railroad tracks. To the north of us, you can see up in the upper right-hand corner is the XL substation. We have the school board, transportation building, and their bus garage activities. And then we have the Bassett's Creek kind of lining the northerly edge of our property. And then just on the other side of that is primarily some industrial uses today. Also, you can see at the bottom of the page, we've got the park in the lower right or lower left, and then Dunwoody's across the freeway of 394. So that kind of gives you a perspective of where we're at and what we have going down there at the impound lot. A little bit about our operations today. We are open 24/7 as we bring in vehicles, but we're open for typical daily releases to allow folks to pick up their vehicles. We primarily tow vehicles for violations that happen with traffic, but also for other purposes, inspections, police actions, and then the snow emergencies and sweeps. Roughly, we release about 32,000 vehicles a day. And we auction about 3,000 a year, and we auction about 3,000 vehicles a year as well in that regards. The photo in the lower right corner there indicates our lobby space, and you can see on a fairly busy day, we've got limited space for our customers to stand and queue up. So maybe from there, taking a step back even further and really talking about how did we land in this spot at the impound lot? Back in 1993, action was taken to basically change from a private operating system to a city-run system. And so in 1983, the city Public Works got involved with running the impound lot. Several years thereafter, we built the building that we have today on the site that it is, and we began, operations from that building. Then right around 1999, there was staff direction relative to a number of activities in that general area, not only the impound lot, but the concrete crushing activity in the Linden Yards. And we were directed to do some study work. That study work resulted in a report that was brought forward in 2001 that really looked at a number of things, appraisals, relocation, analysis, but basically the direction from that was to shrink the impound lot and do those short-term strategies that we could. A couple of follow-up items on that. You see that we did shrink our impound lot in that regards. We took some actions. I want to present a graph that effectively shows our trend line for tows since 2002 to 2014. That graphic basically shows a reduction over the past roughly 10 years of about 25%. So we've shrank the impound lot by 25% in regards to the space that we are using today with a number of tows. Likewise, the Van White Memorial Roadway and Boulevard Bridge and Roadway moved forward, and that reduced our footprint throughout the site by about 600 spaces. So that occurred in roughly 2000 to 2005, depending upon when that occurred. From that effort and learning those things, we did some further efforts in 2009. We updated the 2001 report and looked at those short-term strategies and relocation activities. And that really brought us forward with some more dialogue. But back in December of 2013, we were in front of the committee and council to get some basic direction, which was we weren't able to find alternative sites. So we said, let's basically reduce the impound lot footprint and have staff prepare some recommendations about how we can stay put and find better direction relative to the impound lot, but also with the redevelopment parameters and opportunities around not only the impound lot, but Bassett's Creek and the Van White Boulevard project itself. So with that, we put together a staff team made up of CPED, Finance and Property Services, as well as Public Works staff. We created several options so that we could engage the community with those. But basically, I'll get into discussing kind of what those options were that we took out to the community. The elements that were similar in all three options was we assumed we needed to do the building improvements relative to customer needs and employee needs and space. We also developed all the options to reduce the impound lot, its size, and the lot per se itself. We concluded that we can do our auction services off-site so we can free up that auction bay area to be used for other purposes. And then lastly, that we think we can reduce the police holds and relocate them under 394. With that, we developed three options that I'll quickly run through here that we took out to the community. We created an east option. Effectively, what we're doing is shifting all of the operations to the east, shown in green here, and we freed up the area on the west side, which is shown in white. And that was the basic concept for the east option. We developed a second option called the west option, which sort of reversed that pattern, shifted all of our operations primarily to the west, and then freed up the white space on the east side, in this case, of Van White Boulevard. And then the third option that we brought forward was a development-focused option, the white area being paralleled on each side of Van White to kind of develop the area directly adjacent to the roadway, so that then the impound lot becomes the split option. So we labeled this the split option. We took these three options out to the community in 2013 and got their input on that. We presented all three options. We had a lot of input and feedback on that Bryn Mawr, Harrison, and the Bassett's Creek Rock Committee were all involved with that. We got numerous and a variety of input from the community. In general, the community offered up comments on all three options, but I would say that options, the east option and the split option, had more favorable comments to them related than to the west option. Likewise, the community groups did not collectively or individually weigh in as a group or select or make a preferred option. But in all cases, they agreed that we should be smaller and that we should be a better neighbor. With that community engagement, the project team took steps to examine all three options as well, and we had identified that the east option had the least impacts. The easterly area of the impound lot is surrounded, as I mentioned before, on three sides by the school district, by the substation, and by the railroad. Not uses that are going to change very quickly in the near future. We can continue to meet our access and circulation needs relative to that. The overflow area, which would now be under the east option relegated to the western side of Van White, would only be used primarily during snow and street sweep circumstances, so it would be used the least. And with that, staff examined the east option and said, we think we can do a refinement and revision that accounts for soils, visual screening, and some potential uses on the westerly parcels. So with that, we developed this option, which effectively takes the westerly portion of the three options that we presented before and kind of rotates it more instead of north-south directly adjacent to Van White Boulevard, it makes it east-west adjacent to the railroad tracks. In addition, this chart here, well, I won't go into the exact numbers, kind of lays out each of the components, subsets of the towing operations and how are we changing them not only in quantity from existing conditions, but also to potential locations in that regards. Overall, I guess I want to say that our option here, if you go to the bottom totals, you see the acreages and the space counts. Effectively, we're reducing our space by 40% in this revised east option. So with that kind of basic conclusion, we said we need to talk and have some further engagement, primarily with MnDOT, about the circumstances and the proposal to move the police holes under 394. We developed ideas and layouts generally about how the cars could fit down there, had a meeting and walked the site with our MnDOT partners. And in general, they gave us some positive support in that regards and said we could proceed forward at this stage. We need to come back with them with more discussion about the design and the layout and the details, but we got their general support at this stage. In addition, we also wanted to respond to the community engagement statement, which says, how can the impound lot be a better neighbor? And so we had formed a small group of the community groups and had a couple of meetings here in 2015 about what does a good neighbor mean to them, what's their values, what's their goals with that. We've kind of summarized in 5 bullets here related to vehicle impacts, visual items, flexibility for future uses, water, environment, pedestrian access elements. We also produced a report, which is attached to the RCA this morning, kind of highlighting those discussions and those meetings with some more detail behind and underneath each one of those. What does vehicle impacts mean? What does visual views mean? And so that really presents their priorities as well as their interest in how we can be a better neighbor at the impound lot as we move forward. So that has led us to a concept plan that we're seeking approval today from council on. In a nutshell, this is the east option. The kind of pink or salmon area triangle is our daily impound lot operations. The yellow area is our overflow operations, and then to the south and under 394 in the blue is our police hold area, and how we would organize the site. The basic elements of that concept are these. We have building improvements to accomplish. We have to move and relocate the police holds. We have auctions to deal with relative to that, removing them from the space and conducting that activity outside of the impound lot, as well as we have improvements that need to be done to the lot surface itself, and security and fencing activities that need to be done. With that, we've generally identified a very preliminary budget for the work. We've got some preliminary design here that we're working through, which is within the operating budget activities that we can accomplish later this year and the beginning of next. And then we have final design and construction, and we anticipate to move forward and submit a capital budget request for the 2017 budget cycle accordingly on that. So today, council members, we're seeking approval of the attachment 5 concept plan as our preferred option. And then second of all, seeking your authorization to proceed with project implementation. So with that, that concludes my presentation today, and I'm standing for questions.
Any questions per the presentation by staff? Councilmember Gordon.
I'm curious about the police hold or the police impound lot, or it sounds like the plan is to add additional parking under Interstate 394 for the police impound lot. Where are those cars being stored now?
Councilmember Reich and Councilmember Gordon, today our police